All I can say when I look at this is kind of like something I wanted to write about. 30, 20, 32, hammer and sickle. Hell yeah, brother.
Visible behind him were walls of framed fan art, a cardboard cutout of Bernie Sanders sitting in the cold, and Piker's huge puppy, Kaya, taking a nap. Piker had already shown off his cozy-ass fit, sweatpants with kitschy bald eagles, a custom pair of platform Crocs, and recounted his experience the previous night at the Streamer Awards, a red carpet event honoring A-listers on Twitch, the popular live streaming site where he is one of the biggest stars, and the only prominent leftist. He'd begun the day's broadcast by rattling off a standard opening monologue. Folks, we're live and alive, and I hope all the boys, girls, and NBs, non-binary people, are having a fantastic one. To anyone listening for shibboleths, this would have pigeonholed him as a progressive. Also within view, though, were 3 towers of Zyn canisters and a Make America Great Again hat, which he sometimes wears ironically. He has the patter of a Rutgers frat bro and the laid-back charisma of a Miami club promoter, both of which he was, briefly, in his early 20s. Now he's 33. So old in streamer years that his fans call him Unk. I ordered a
Fuck, I'm like Grand Unk at this point.
Lift, then flipped back to Piker's stream. By then he was talking about the overthrow of the Assad regime in Syria, which had happened overnight. I watched as he cycled from BBC footage to Wikipedia, pausing every few seconds to add a diatribe or a joke. The angle he was developing was that Western journalists seemed too eager to portray the leader of the Syrian rebel forces in a heroic light. I'm very skeptical of the fucking former Al-Qaeda guy, Piker said. A little while later, his doorbell rang, and he leaned over to buzz in a guest, me. I looked up from...
Guys, how much do you think Ethan Klein is melting down right now? First of all, he's watching my stream for sure. How much do you think Ethan Klein is melting fucking down right now?
my phone to see him standing in his doorway. He doesn't run ad breaks, so whenever he needs to do something off camera, like answer the door or use the bathroom, he plays a video and attends to his business quickly, before his viewers can get bored. I'm live right now, but we can talk when I'm done, he told me, already walking away. Try and stay out of the shot. In last year's presidential...
Treating reporters like they deserve to be treated. My one feeling about reporters is... Here's what you need to understand about a reporter. A reporter is not your friend. They are not heroic. Now, it doesn't mean you shouldn't support journalism. It doesn't mean you shouldn't support reporters. It's just, I'm talking about in your personal life. Like if a reporter is walking around you with a pen at the ready, that's a threat. And you should think that. Unless they have demonstrated loyalty to you in the past or friendship in the past, you should always consider that a threat. And you should always be on guard. Anything you say to a journalist could end up in a fucking article. So just remember that. You can't trust these motherfuckers.
Election, Democrats lost support with nearly every kind of voter. Rich, poor, white, black, Asian American, Hispanic. But the defection that alarmed party strategists the most was that of young voters, especially young men, a group that Donald Trump lost by 15 points in 2020 and won by 14 points in 2024, a nearly 30-point swing. The only cohort of men that Biden won in 2020 was 18 to 29-year-olds. John Della Volpe, the polling director at Harvard's Institute of Politics and a former advisor to Biden's presidential campaign, told me. That was the one cohort they had to hold on to, and they let it go. Candidates matter. So does the national mood and the price of groceries. Yet some Monday morning...
To be fair, you and Sean Black and Denims are covering Ethan Klein right now, but if for damn certain he's furiously flipping back and forth with... I'm not really covering Ethan right now, actually. I'm talking about Hasan and like... So this is why Hasan is important, and like somebody like Ethan Klein and Destiny aren't. Right? Like, and they fundamentally... And here's the reality, chat. It's either Hasan Piker or it's no one. And a lot of for Ethan Klein and Destiny, the answer is they would rather live in a world where it was no one than have it be Hasan Piker. That's the reality we're fighting, because they're very comfortable with the fascists. They're white male Zionists. The status quo serves them very well. Rich white male Zionists. They don't give a fuck if you guys don't have health care. They don't give a fuck if you're drowning in student loans, because they got rich off the internet from pure fucking luck, because they were consistently posting or consistently streaming right when these websites were created. They were the early adopters who got lucky and who are completely disconnected from reality.
Quarterbacks also noted that, just as 1960 was the first TV election and 2016 was the first social media election, the 2024 presidential campaign was the first to be conducted largely on live streams and long-form podcasts, media that happened to be thoroughly dominated by MAGA bros. The biggest of them all, Joe Rogan, spent the final weeks of the campaign giving many hours of fawning airtime to Trump.
Okay, so chat, I need to have this video. I need to have this article open twice. I want to have one where I can pause it quickly without having to scroll, and another where I can watch the text. Okay. That's what we're going to do. Because I want to be able to add commentary, but so we're going to be listening to this for a while. The one thing that I will say here is Joe Rogan became a MAGA bro because the Democratic Party shit on him because he was supporting Bernie Sanders. This is kind of the thing that's unacknowledged. It's oh, Joe Rogan is just this right winger. And the reality is the reason why Joe Rogan got popular is because he wasn't a right winger, or at least he wasn't perceived to be. Same thing with Asmongold, right? Asmongold has always been a secret, the dog whistles were there if you were a right winger to understand that Asmongold was a right winger, right? But he was way, way, way more chill about it, and he would say some corporate progressive things in the past. Now he's out and open about who he is. It's not very complicated. I don't think Asmongold is grifting. Just to be clear, I think Asmongold is an incurious right winger, right? That's it. I don't think he really cares about the truth. I don't think he values, I think he holds really backward beliefs and values. I don't think he's grifting. I think he's literally saying what he believes. I think that he doesn't really care about politics and he doesn't want to be a political actor. And that's actually good. That's actually good. I like the fact that Asmongold is soaking up right wing. I think a lot of people are damn, it sucks that he's the biggest, political streamer or whatever. No, it's good. Asmongold, can you imagine women watching Asmongold and being persuaded? Can you imagine normies seeing Asmongold and being persuaded? The more Asmongold represents the right, the better. So for me, I think it's fine. Show clips of Asmongold to your mom.
And to his running mate, J.D. Vance, and his key allies, such as Elon Musk, before endorsing Trump on the eve of the election. At no point was I only I, a dickhead on the internet, am qualified to teach these kids why we need a functioning welfare state, Piker told me. I just felt like no one else was really in these spaces trying to explain these things. Certainly not the Democrats. Piker has almost 3 million Twitch followers, and as with most guys who talk into microphones on the internet, his audience skews young, male, and disaffected. At the peak of his election night stream in November, he had more than 300,000 viewers.
Like, Asmongold is a mom's nightmare, right? Like, if you see your son following Asmongold and you see that he lives in filth, he doesn't brush his teeth, and he's smearing the blood of his like rotten teeth on the wall. But he's got cockroaches clawing all over him. He looks like a chemotherapy patient. Like, the average mother is would look at that and go, "Oh my God, that's my worst nightmare." He sits there and plays video games all day. I think that's part of the fun of why people watch Asmongold, right? It's like I'm going to see somebody who's, if you have a messy room, right, and you turn on Asmongold, you're like, well, I'm not that bad. Like, that's the entire allure of Asmongold. I'm not that bad.
He broadcasts 7 days a week, 8 to 10 hours a day, usually from his house in West Hollywood, and he doesn't use visual pyrotechnics to hold his viewers' attention. Most of the time, what you see on his stream is an overlay of 3 things: a fixed shot of Piker sitting at his desk, a screen share of whatever he's looking at on his computer, and his chat, where fans supply pertinent links, caps lock shit talk, and puppy emojis, all surging in real time up the right side of the screen.
Can I just say that it's so funny that the younger generations, what is equivalent to a Zoom presentation for their entertainment? Congratulations, chat. No, Mike, it needs Subway Surfers? No, it doesn't. By the way, that fucking meme is dead, isn't it? Like, people aren't even doing that anymore.
Although Piker hates Trump, he's hardly a loyal Democrat. At bottom, he's an old-school hard leftist, not a liberal. On his bedside table, he has some protein Pop-Tart knockoffs and a copy of the Communist Manifesto. Many of his opinions, for example, that the American empire has been a destructive force on the whole, would surely be off-putting to the median voter. But he is just one of many independent media creators with an anti-Trump message.
The idea that, okay, I could hear the sound of the editorial thumb coming in with that comment, which is just like, the average American wants to be an isolationist. The average American's opinion on foreign policy is, why are we spending so much money over there when we got so many problems over here? Why the hell are we spending so much money over there when we got so many problems over here? That's the average American's opinion. They're not like, America needs to maintain a credible deterrent in the South China Sea to ensure that China can be contained if geopolitical conditions warrant. Like, that's not the average American, okay? The average American isn't like, we need to build advanced missile bases on those Japanese atolls. And we need to secure strategic alliances with Pacific nations so that the United States can maintain a qualitative edge over China in any confrontation. Like, that's not the average American, okay? The average American isn't like, we need to spend more money over there. They're going to be over here. That's not a thing. Okay, the average American is like, why the fuck are there so many potholes in my street? Why is there so much asbestos in my kid's fucking school? Why are there homeless people digging through the trash on my block? Why are there people with clear mental illnesses screaming out loud in the middle of the night? That's what the average American voter is like thinking about. They're not thinking about, they're thinking about the fact they can't afford the doctor bill they just got. Okay, they're not thinking about America needs to develop an alternative to the aging B-1 strategic bomber force. That's why I'm in favor of spending $400 billion on the B-21 Raider strategic stealth bomber to ensure that our nuclear triad is maintained credibly. That's not the average American. Okay, the average American is not some sort of foreign policy freak.
In recent weeks, the political podcast charts have included The Bulwark, This is Gavin Newsom, and even a show called
The Bulwark, anti-Trump Republicans promoted by MSNBC, Gavin Newsom, centrist Democrat scum that would only be popular in California, and raging moderates. Oh my God.
Raging Moderates. For a couple of weeks last month, a liberal show called The Midas Touch podcast beat out The Joe Rogan Experience for the #1 spot. Corporate media too often has a both sides perspective. Ben Meiselas, one of the Midas Touch co-hosts, told me. We do not mince words about the threat to workers, the threat to democracy. One piece of fan art on Piker's wall is a cartoon of him operating a daycare center, shielding a room full of lost boys from the malign chaos of the open internet. You gravitate to him because he's just a voice you find relatable, Piker's producer, who goes by March, told me. A lot of people don't even put a political label on it, at least at first. Piker gets up early every morning to work out, posting his daily stats so that his fans, his community, can follow along from home. He gives dating advice and motivational speeches. At a moment when there seems to be an ever-shortening algorithmic pipeline from bench-pressing tips to misogynist rage, Piker tries to model a more capacious form of masculinity. A straight guy, 6'4" and movie star handsome, who's as comfortable wearing camo to a gun range.
We're going to have to listen to Ethan Klein and Destiny fucking melting down over this. They're going to say, he's glazing him! He's glazing him! He's glazing him! Stupid, sexy Hasan. Stupid, sexy Hasan. They are, though? No, they're just being they're being objective. He is 6'4". He is super handsome. That's just objective fact. As much as anything can be objective, his height and the fact that Hasan Piker is considered handsome is just an objective truth. Now, maybe looks are subjective, but if you gathered a bunch of women and said, "Do you guys think this guy is handsome?" they would say yes. Who's as comfortable wearing camo to the gun range
as he is walking a red carpet in split-toe Margiela boots? Once viewers have come to trust him, they may be more open to his riffs on the rights of the poor or of trans people, delivered not as a primer on Judith Butler, but in the register of, bro, don't be a dick.
I do think that he would. I mean, man, Judith Butler. I'm not even going to start. It's not even important. It's not important. Like, whatever. There's these kind of CIA left who say a lot of smart shit and a lot of really useful ideas, and they are important, but the way they were captured by America's security state is very uncomfortable. George Orwell would be a great example of that.
I pulled up a chair just out of frame. Kaya ambled toward me, vetting my scent. Piker talked, almost without interruption, for 4 more hours, holding forth about recent internet drama, a documentary about the history of NATO, and the United Healthcare CEO's assassin, who had not yet been identified. Within reach of his rolling desk chair was a mini fridge full of cold brew and Diet Mountain Dew. Some of his takes were too unpolished for prime time. Bro, these guys are so cucked, he said.
They love quotes of him saying bro. They love quotes of him saying bro. It's like every time Hasan said bro, he wrote it down.
Critiquing a clip from a rival podcast on the right. Then again, a live stream isn't supposed to be a tight, scripted lecture. It's supposed to be a good hang. I gotta end the broadcast here, he said, shortly after 8 p.m. I'll see you tomorrow. After turning the camera off, he seemed to deflate a bit. Comments were still floating up one of his monitors. The thousands of fans in the chat had dwindled to a few hundred. The inner circle who were devoted enough, or lonely enough, to keep one another company after the feed had gone dark.
Offliners catching strays. Holy shit, the offliners are catching strays, dude. The offliners getting roasted. It's just called the Discorders getting caught. God damn, dude. Lonely? They're just friends. Like, what the fuck?
The Democrats are smug and condescending, and everything they say sounds fake as shit, Piker said. Trump lies constantly, yes, but at least people get the sense that he's authentically saying what he's thinking.
I think that's such a good point. There is such a thing as an authentic lie. I really need to start. I need to like firm this up, but this point I think is incredibly important. There's something so much as an authentic lie. And what I mean by that is it's something that you say that is not correct, and maybe your audience even knows that it's not correct and knows that you know it's not correct, but it's an expression, an authentic expression of your identity. Do you get what I mean? It's like when Donald Trump says Mexicans are rapists, right? He's not saying, I mean, he's saying that all Mexicans are rapists, but nobody's hearing that as he's saying all Mexicans are racist. If you're on the left, you're like, oh my God, that's racist as fuck. What a piece of shit. But on the right, they aren't saying, they don't actually believe that every Mexican in this country are rapists. What they're saying is, this guy is not scared to piss off people by saying a racist comment. And it's kind of true that Mexicans commit more crimes. That's what he's, that's how it's being heard by conservatives. The conservatives are not hearing this as a statement of fact. They're hearing this as a shibboleth of conservative racist values and a willingness to say shit that is impolite, which means you're willing to confront the left. That is that, and I think that's what I call an authentic lie. It is a lie that you say that pisses off all the right people. It shows your allies you're part of the team. And you're willing to eat shit from the opposition. And you're willing to take them on.
He put his feet up and reached for a fresh Zyn pouch. Young men, like a lot of Americans, feel increasingly alienated, he continued. They can't afford college or rent. They can't get a date. They can't imagine a stable future. The right is always there to tell them, yes, you should be angry. And the reason your life sucks is because of immigrants or because a trans kid played a sport. And all the Democrats are telling them is, no, shut up. Your life is fine. Be joyful. No one has ever accused Piker of being a moderate, but in this case, he is trying to forge a compromise. My way is to go, look, be angry if you want, but your undocumented neighbor is not the problem here. You're looking in the wrong direction. In 2015, the economists Ann Case and Angus Deaton wrote that white non-Hispanics without college degrees were experiencing an anomalous spike in mortality from opioids, alcohol, and suicide.
And this is something, I guess this is why, like, I'm Mike from Pennsylvania. And this is like one of the home bases of this phenomenon. White, non-college educated people dying of overdoses. I've had family members of mine who fit this exact situation who are now dead. Who died in their 30s and who died in their 40s. Far before their time. And that is why, that's where my anger comes from, is just the blatant coastal elite denial of the reality of what is happening to large swaths of this country.
They later called these deaths of despair. In 2016, J.D. Vance, then an anti-Trump conservative, published a memoir, Hillbilly Elegy, about the struggles of white rural families like his own.
Actually, it's more like him shitting on them. He doesn't really, it's not about the struggles. It's about how they deserve their struggles because they're lazy and entitled. And it's basically the conservative version of settlers. Basically, J.D. Vance goes, these people are labor aristocrats whining about their lost privilege and they deserve to die because they're too lazy and stupid to do what I did, which is win. Like, that's literally Hillbilly Elegy. Hillbilly Elegy is settlers, but written by a conservative. It's kind of interesting how the CIA keeps coming back to the same arguments, right? Oh, I'm reading Settlers right now. Is it bad? I would consider Settlers to be if there's any political work that I hold in more contempt, I can't think of one. I think it may be the worst piece of literal of thought ever written. It's I would say from the point of view of the CIA, it's probably the most effective thing they ever wrote. Like Settlers is one of those things where you have to step back and go, wow, the CIA could really, they've got moves. They've got fucking moves. It's like, you know, you see that and it's like, damn. CIA's got hands. And people will come in here and defend it. That's the thing that's real. That shows you that it's got hands, because you have people in here who think themselves radical and they're out there going like, actually, the worker in the Imperial Corps is actually ineffective and not worth organizing and will never show solidarity with socialist movements abroad. It's like, wow, that seems to be exactly what the CIA wants you to think. That's crazy how it lines up exactly with what they want you to think.
Promoting the book on PBS, he explained, but did not yet excuse, why such voters were drawn to Trump. I think that the sense of cultural alienation breeds a sense of mistrust. The first Trump administration didn't deliver many material gains to the rural poor. Deaths of despair continued to rise, and wages continued to stagnate, but at least Trump spoke to their anguish and seemed outraged on their behalf. In retrospect, the question may not be why so many non-urban, non-elites became Trump Republicans, but what took them so long. Around the same time, social scientists started to notice an overlapping crisis. The statistics were grim. 21st century males were, relative to their forefathers and their female contemporaries, much more likely to fall behind in school, drop out of college, languish in the workforce, or die by overdose or suicide.
I think one of the big problems with this is, like, there's people like me who succeeded anyway. And so people see people like me or people like Hasan and they go, see, you guys succeeded. That means the guys who failed deserved it. And it's like, no, I am just wired in such a way that I can perform well on tests. I am wired in such a way that I can recall information readily and easily. That is just, it's basically like, have you ever heard of an explanation of an A student? An A student, a straight A student, is somebody who is a person that can learn on their own. A straight A student is somebody who, it doesn't matter how bad their teacher is, as long as they have a syllabus and a list of stuff they need to know, they're going to show up on test day knowing that. I am a straight A student. I don't need a teacher to guide me. Okay? Like, I could autodidact my way through all this shit. I don't need your help. Whereas students that get some A's and some B's and some C's, that's the student who, if they have a bad teacher, they're going to underperform. But if they have a good teacher, they're going to rise to the same level of expertise that I did. That's the average person. The average person is somebody who the teacher and the way things are taught and the structure of the situation is going to help them succeed. And our society is designed more and more and more for young men not to succeed. Now, you could say a lot of that is their own autodidact. I wish I could self-suck. I didn't say auto dick suck. I said autodidact. And like, that is the problem that we have, is a lot of people are like, look, you could succeed if you were better. Therefore, you deserve to lose. And that is the nub. That is the heart of conservative thought, by the way. That is the nub of, like, if you hear yourself saying shit like that, that's why I hate settlers so much. If you start blaming individuals for the problem of systems, you've become a conservative. Human beings are not independent agents. Human beings are the products of their environment. And there is a genetic component. There is a component that is heritable. But overall, the vast majority of us are the products of the societies and cultures and identities and social conditioning that we receive. And so when you just start pointing at people that are suffering and go, it's because you made this X, Y, and Z mistake. If that mistake is expected, the system should change to not make that mistake less common. Be kind to people to be ruthless to systems. That's a Michael Brooks quote.
The title of a 2012 book by the journalist Hannah Rosen declared The End of Man. The following year, the economists Marianne Bertrand and Jessica Pan published a paper called The Trouble with Boys. In one survey, more than a quarter of men in their teens and 20s reported having no close friends. When COVID hit, men were significantly more likely to die from it. In the 15 years I've been looking...
Well, that's actually genetics, by the way. Well, that's partially genetics and partially culture. This is, first of all, men have weaker immune systems than women. This is a scientific fact. Sex differences in immune responses. I'm talking about the female chromosomes. So-called. They have better immune systems. Sex differences in immune responses result in different susceptibility of males and females to autoimmune diseases, malignancies, and infectious diseases, as well as affecting the outcome of vaccination. XX is better than XY. Mike, sex is based on 5 different factors of biology, not just the chromosomes. Very true. Very true. I'm just talking about the genetic component here. Very true. Like, the physical sex is a result of a whole bunch of different factors that are epigenetic, that are genetic, but genetic is a component. We're talking about that specific part. Men are genetically inferior due to having XY chromosomes instead of double X. We did a deep dive into my intro to human genetics class in college at SUNY, one of the best gen ed courses I took. Yeah, men have less genetic information than women do, which means they're more susceptible to chromosomal damage. It's just a fact. There's no debate. When we're talking about the sex, male sex, not men. Sorry, don't let the woke of the day freak out. In the 15 years I've been looking at the statistics, the outcome for men has not changed. What did change tremendously is the culture. The last Democratic presidential candidate to win the male vote was Barack Obama. Okay, I should be...
Now the statistics. The outcomes for men have not changed, Rosen told me. What did change tremendously is the culture. The last Democratic presidential candidate to win the male vote was Barack Obama. When Bernie Sanders ran for president, he had a zealous male following, but many top Democrats treated the Bernie bros less like a force to be harnessed than like a threat to be vanquished. A White Dudes for Harris Zoom call raised millions for Kamala Harris's campaign, but it would have been anathema to her base if she'd given a speech about what she planned to do for white dudes. This was, meanwhile, a key part of Trump's appeal. In the 2022 book, Of Boys and Men, Richard Reeves, a social scientist and a fellow at the Brookings Institution, blasts Republicans for exploiting male dislocation and misogynist fury at the expense of women's rights. But he also lambastes Democrats for pathologizing masculinity. He gives an example from his son's high school in Bethesda, Maryland, where boys passed around a spreadsheet ranking their female classmates by attractiveness, behavior that Reeves describes as immature, even harmful, but not worthy of an international incident, which is what it became. He writes that indiscriminately slapping the label of toxic masculinity onto this kind of behavior is a mistake, likely to propel young men to the online manosphere where they will be reassured.
Okay. I think if this happens, you give the boys a talking to. This is a parental issue, right? You give the boys a talking to and you say, this is wrong. This is bad. And then that's that. But you know who also had a spreadsheet? Extra fucking Emily. This is more of like an autistic thing than I think it is a toxic masculinity. I think it's just like a socially maladjusted thing rather than like a toxic masculinity thing.
Sure that they did nothing wrong and that liberals are out to get them. At some point between Bill Clinton playing the saxophone on the Arsenio Hall show and Hillary Clinton describing potential voters as deplorables, the Democrats came to be perceived as the party of scolds and snobs. Liberals used to be the counterculture. Today, they're the defenders of traditional norms and institutions.
Liberals were never the counterculture. Liberals were absolutely never the counterculture. You're incorrect. You're incorrect. Liberals have retroactively absorbed the hippie, you know, oh yeah, we were against the war in Vietnam. We were the hippies. And it's like, not really. The reality is that liberals were the guys in office saying, crack their heads at Dealey Plaza.
This may not have been the best political strategy at any time. It certainly isn't now, when trust in institutions has never been lower. It's impossible to know how many young men fit into this category, but there is clearly a kind of guy, the contemporary don't tread on me type who demands both the freedom to have gay friends and the freedom to use gay as an insult, who resents the idea.
That is, ladies and gentlemen, so this is Joe Rogan in a nutshell. I've talked about this before. I consider this the vulgar vote or the downscale vote. It's a good example of this would be Insane Clown Posse or old Howard Stern or you get what I'm saying, chat? Like this kind of like very vulgar, down to earth, you know, they like sex and fart jokes. They like getting drunk. You know, I like sluts because that means I get to fuck. You know, they love strippers. You know, that kind of shit. Right? For the longest time, this downscale type of guy was kind of generally considered a Democrat because the Republicans were the party of the Christian right. I want to ban video games. And now a lot of these guys, they like Trump, and that's where Trump comes from. That was the win. That Trump is the guy who convinced those people to vote Republican. They're the type of guy who laughs at like racist humor, but doesn't consider themselves to be racist. Like this is legitimately a thing, right? And I am a person who is a public figure. And I think we talk about rad libs, right? Rad libs are the people who yell at you for doing something like this, right? The rad libs are the people that yell at you, you know, if you step outside the social norms and rules of being a progressive. Right? So-and-so's not a progressive. I figured it out. They once said gay as an insult. See? They're secretly a conservative. There's this like inquisitorial impulse among the wokes of the day. You know what I mean? They're always trying to uncover your secret racism, your secret homophobia, your secret misogyny, where they want to create this kind of dizzying array of social rules that you need to follow and words you need to know. And like that is how they gain interpersonal advantage, right? You forgot to say your pronouns. Interesting. Are you transphobic? That kind of shit.
Of his morality being dictated by the family values right, or his speech being curtailed by the hall monitor left.
The hall monitor left. That's the woke of the day, right? That's your woke of the day. The woke of the day is like, you said dudes instead of a gender neutral word for the us group. Why didn't you say y'all instead of dudes? Interesting. Are you a misogynist? That's the hall monitor left. And everybody hates these people. Everybody hates these people. This is a huge, huge, huge issue. Not that it's actually important, but that it is so many people worry about this, which is like, I'll say something wrong and then I will be considered a racist or a sexist or a transphobe, and I'll get in trouble and I'll get fired and I'll lose my position at college. And there's an anxiety that people are holding on to. Now, me personally, I'm uncancelable. You can't cancel me. Why? Because I know how canceling works. The only way you can get canceled, is if your own audience cancels you. That's it. If you just keep streaming, if you just keep going, you can't be canceled. It's only if your fans and your followers cancel you that you actually get canceled. Or you quit yourself. That's the dirty little secret. So I know I'm uncancelable because you guys are going to cancel me. Because I'm inculcating you against the things that might get me canceled. Like, for example, this. I'm saying woke of the day is bad and hall monitor left is bad. And I'm creating the conditions so that if I said something was gay and somebody said, look, Mike was saying that was gay to mean bad, you're not going to cancel me because I've already inculcated you against doing that. Duh. Easy. Uncancelable. Done. And by the way, I think it's stupid to cancel someone over that shit anyway. When pressed, many of these young men
seem to have bought the pitch that, of the two parties, the Republicans were the less censorious.
And I think this is the primary appeal of Asmongold. This is the primary appeal of Asmongold. Asmongold is basically saying, why can't we just make big old titty games anymore? The left doesn't, they're trying to force the unattractive transgender non-binary people into our games. They're ruining the games with their Sweet Baby Inc. And there is a kind of, and like, me personally, the dirtbag left, that Hasan is also a dirtbag. We like big boobies. We don't care about that. In fact, if you want to put big boobies in your game, have at it, Haas. Big butts, have at it, Haas. I want everybody to have the hot people. I want to have, I want a skin for Iron Fist where he's, shirtless and oiled up. Like free the male nipple as well. But get huge, bulges of all the characters. Great, do it. Give all these guys big round butts. Do it. I'll give you a perfect example of what is censorious. Do you guys remember when Cyberpunk 2077 or whatever the fuck that name is, the game? You guys know what I'm talking about. The CD Projekt Red game. I never actually played it yet, so I can't judge if it's bad. But they had a poster in the game of a trans woman who had a big bulge. And a bunch of people had meltdowns over that on the left. Do you guys remember? And that was insane to me. That actually pissed me off. You're like, look how transphobic this game is. They're sexualizing trans women's bulges or whatever the fuck. And I was like, that's the whole point. That's the entire point. That's the art. Women can have big bulges too. But also, look what they're sexualizing it's kind of the aesthetic of Cyberpunk 2077 is, and part of the gameplay is that you can customize your, like, we almost commodify our bodies to the extreme, and that results in a totally new frontier. The point of the is that they were hyposexualized. Yes, exactly. Exactly. That's the whole fucking point. But people started melting down. That's the hall monitor left. Sometimes I call it the anti-sex zoomer left. The sex negative zoomer left. Where everything is problematic, every age gap is rape, and God forbids there be a sex scene in art that exists. This is the type of shit that is actually pissing everybody off. It's secular Mormonism. I remember seeing that pointed out that alt-right are boob guys and liberal men are ass men. Why can't we just unite and be all? The USA is doomed? Oh, absolutely. Can't we just unite around all? I will say, you know, I have some thoughts on that, which is like, I think boob fixation is kind of like is inherently more objectifying and less about sex and more about like looking at women as an object a little bit. Nothing wrong with liking booby, by the way. It's just, it's a little bit interesting that I think that point is salient.
This may have been a miscalculation. The current Trump administration has already banished dozens of words from government websites and, just last week, arrested a former Columbia student for what seems to be protected speech. But you can't convince voters that they've been misinformed simply by lecturing them. The lecturing is part of the issue.
Well, here's the thing. The Republican coalition has these right-wing, censorious Christian nationalists, and I think this is what's going to be the seeds of the destruction of the right. The seeds of the destruction of the Asmongold right is that the Southern evangelical Christian evangelical elites are going to impose themselves on the alt-right gamer guys. The guy, you know, the alt-right gamer guys with lowly avatars, they're going to be targeted. Like, they seem to think their anime and their video games are going to be freed under Donald Trump, and I can tell you it's not the case. Because Texas has just voted to make obscene anime, mangas, and video games illegal. Texas Senate Bill 20 proposes criminal penalties for possessing or distributing obscene material involving minors through animated content, video games, or AI-generated media. The bill's wording could target works like Persona 5, Kill la Mill, Monogatari, and raising concerns about its impact on fans and collectors. And by the way, chat, obscene doesn't just mean sexual. It could just be violent as well. Uh-oh! Asmongold! Uh-oh! Texans! Tectone! Uh-oh! Uh-oh! Spaghetti-o! Are the right-wing evangelical Christians who love Zionism turning against Persona 5 in your favorite anime? This is the reality. And this isn't surprising. Ted Cruz tried to ban dildos. Ted Cruz tried to ban dildos already. Hey, Tectone. Ted Cruz defended a ban on dildos. His legal team argued there was no right to stimulate one's genitals. They were prosecuting a woman. If you want to know what the case was, they were prosecuting a mom because she was doing like a Tupperware party for sex toys. She had a company where she would do like, she would get a bunch of women together and she would like talk about different sex toys and sell them, and like, you know, and if you guys know what a Tupperware party is, that's what people used to do, is like they would, you know, you organize a bunch of friends and you bring them together for like a party and you show a bunch of like, you know, premium products and you try to do, you know, you sell them. And they prosecuted her. And Ted Cruz defended it. In one chapter of his campaign book, A Time for Truth, Senator Ted Cruz proudly chronicles his days as Texas Solicitor General, a post he held from 2003 to 2008. Bolstering his conservative cred, the Republican presidential candidate notes that during his stint as the state's chief lawyer in front of the Supreme Court and federal and state appellate courts, he defended the inclusion of "under God" in the Pledge of Allegiance, the display of the Ten Commandments on the grounds of the state capitol, a congressional redistricting plan that assisted Republicans, a restrictive voter identification law, and a ban on late-term abortions. He also described cases in which he championed gun rights and defended the conviction of a Mexican citizen who raped and murdered 2 teenage girls in a case challenged by the World Court. Yet one case he does not mention is the time he helped defend a law criminalizing the sale of dildos. In 2004, companies that owned Austin stores selling sex toys at a retail distributor of such products challenged a Texas law outlawing the sale and promotion of supposedly obscene devices. Under the law, a person who violated the statute could go to jail for up to 2 years. At the time, only 3 states, Mississippi, Alabama, and Virginia, had similar laws. The previous year, a Texas mother who was a sales rep for passion parties was arrested by 2 undercover cops for selling vibrators and other sex-related goods at a gathering akin to Tupperware party for sex toys. This is the thing that Asmongold and Tectone don't seem to understand. They're coming for your big tit video games, and it ain't gonna be the liberals, you dumbass. It ain't gonna be the wokes, you dumb fuck. It's always going to be the conservative, evangelical, Zionist right-wingers, you dumbass motherfucker. You're talking about inferior cultures and attacking us. You are dumb. You are a dumb fucker. The plaintiffs in the sex device case contended the state law violated their right to privacy under the 14th Amendment. They argued that many people in Texas use sexual devices as an aspect of their sexual experiences. They claimed that in some instances, one partner in a couple might be physically unable to engage in intercourse, Tectone, or have a contagious disease such as HIV. And that in these cases, such devices could allow a couple to engage in safe sex. But a federal judge sent them packing, ruling that selling sex toys was not protected by the Constitution. The plaintiffs appealed, and Cruz's Solicitor General office had the task of preserving the law. In 2007, Cruz's legal team, working on behalf of then Attorney General Greg Abbott, who is now the governor, filed a 76-page brief calling on the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Fifth Circuit to uphold the lower court's decision and permit the law to stand. The Texas Penal Code prohibits the advertisement and sale of dildos, artificial vaginas, and other obscene devices, but does not forbid the private use of such devices. The plaintiffs had argued that this case was similar to Lawrence v. Texas, a landmark 2003 Supreme Court decision that struck down Texas laws against sodomy. This is another thing. In Texas, until 2003, it was illegal to have anal sex. That's the freedom that Asmongold is behind. That is the political movement he supports. Banning, oh, you want a blowjob? You want to have anal sex? Illegal. That was primarily targeted against gay men, right? But also could prosecute straight couples. Arrest on unconstitutional sodomy law prompts Baton Rouge police chief to send memo to all officers. Yeah, that was in 2015. But Cruz's office countered that Lords focused on interpersonal relationships and the privacy of the home, and that the law being challenged did not block the private use of obscene devices. Cruz's legal team asserted that obscene devices do not implicate any liberty interest. That means that you can ban dildos or pocket pussies or any other masturbatory aid or any sex aid because they decide that they don't want you to have it. And they can make it criminal to own. And its brief added that any alleged right associated with obscene devices is not deeply rooted in the nation's history and traditions. In other words, Texans were free to use sex toys at home, but they did not have the right to buy them. The brief insisted that Texas, in order to protect public morals, had police power interests in discouraging prurient interests in sexual gratification, combating the commercial sale of sex, and protecting minors. There was a government interest it maintained in discouraging autonomous sex. The brief compared the use of sex toys to hiring a willing prostitute or engaging in consensual bigamy, and it equated advertising these products with the commercial promotion of prostitution. And perhaps the most noticeable line of the brief, Cruz declared, "There is no substantive due process right to stimulate one's genitals for non-medical purposes unrelated to procreation or outside of an interpersonal relationship. That is, the pursuit of such happiness had no constitutional standing," aka it's not a constitutional right to masturbate, according to Ted Cruz and the Republican Party. And the brief argued there was no right to promote dildos, vibrators, or other obscene devices. The plaintiffs, it noted, were free to engage in unfettered, non-commercial speech touting the uses of obscene devices, but not speech designed to generate a sale on the items. In a 2-to-1 decision, the Court of Appeals told Cruz's office to take a hike. In other words, there was a federal appellate judge who agreed that the government should be able to ban masturbating. Ted Cruz lost, but he won one of the judges. And do you think it's better now or worse now? In 2007 on the federal appellate court. This is not a case about public sex. It's not about controlling commerce in sex. It's about controlling what people do in the privacy of their own homes because the state is morally opposed to a certain type of consensual, private, intimate conduct. This is insufficient justification for the statute after Lawrence. Whatever one might think or believe about the use of these devices, government interference with the personal and private use violates the Constitution. Well, guess what, motherfucker? Donald Trump is saying we don't have to listen to judges. He said that today. And Ted Cruz and his Zionist supporters, they're all lining up. And the number one Zionists in America are not Jews. They're Christians, far-right Christians like Ted Cruz. Those are Christian Zionists. And they want to ban your sex toys. They want to ban your anime, which they're lining up to ban right now. And the idea that the people that are the threat, the censorious people are on the left, is a delusional lie that Asmongold tells you. Because he's, quite frankly, not aware of this stuff.
Democrats got used to speaking about men as the problem, not as people with problems, Reeves told me. But of course, men do have problems, and problems become grievances when you ignore them. He knows a lot of well-connected Democrats in Washington, and for years he has urged them to campaign on men's issues. Not in a zero-sum way, certainly not taking anything away from women, but just to show boys and men, hey, you're also having a tough go of it. We see you. And the response I always got was, now is not the time.
And that's what Bernie Sanders did, and that's why they hate him. Bernie Sanders traded men's problems as just as valid as and important as women's problems.
Rosen told me about a husband and wife she'd met in Alabama in 2010. The husband lost his job, and the wife became the breadwinner, an arrangement he experienced as deeply shameful. She would put the check down on the kitchen table, she would sign it over to him, and he would cash it, and nobody would speak about it, Rosen said. But then man-victim became a viable identity. As Rosen stayed in touch with the man, he started exhibiting a more mischievous expression of men's rights sensibilities, wearing a t-shirt that read, My cave, my rules. This coincided with the rise of Trump, the man victim's patron saint. He didn't offer detailed policy solutions to any of the underlying sociological problems, but again, he addressed them directly. It is a very scary time for young men in America, Trump said in 2018. Like most internet terms, manosphere is vague and protean. It has been applied to Ben Shapiro, a father of four who delivers...
Ben Shapiro is not in the manosphere. Ben Shapiro is not in the manosphere. That's not the case.
...conservative talking points in a yarmulke, and to Andrew Tate, a Bugatti-driving hustler who has been charged with human trafficking. In 2016, after a reedy Canadian professor named Jordan Peterson refused to use gender-neutral pronouns, he was taken up as a folk hero, like Galileo, standing firm against the Inquisition. Peterson has almost nothing in common with, say, Dave Portnoy, another mascot of the brosphere who mostly just wants to be left alone to eat pizza and drink beer by the pool. Yet they all seem to be meeting a demand in the cultural marketplace, one that could be as simple, at its root, as a dorm room poster of Marlon Brando on a motorcycle or Johnny Cash flipping off the camera. Last month, Richard Reeves was a guest on a popular podcast hosted by Theo Von, a formerly apolitical comedian who recently went to Trump's inauguration. Von, an infectiously affable guy with a mullet, presents himself...
This is not AI. This is called a human being reading an article. This is a professional voice actor reading the article. It's at 1.2 speed, so it can be a little bit faster.
...as a curious goofball with essentially no prior knowledge on any topic. At one point he spoke, without much nuance, but also without apparent malice, about the plight of the white man. "I'm not speaking against any other group," he said. "I'm just saying you can't make white males feel like they don't exist." Vaughn grew up poor in a small town in Louisiana. "Yes, I know there's privilege, but if you grew up with nothing, you didn't fucking feel any privilege sometimes."
This is the most important point, and this is why class-based organizing is the silver bullet. If any silver bullet exists, it's class-based organizing, which is basically we should be campaigning on bringing everybody up to a certain standard. Not worrying about where relative standards are between different groups and going, well, you're not, you as a group is doing better than this group of people as a group. We should be saying, does every single person have a dignified life? If no, that's a problem. I don't care if 99.9% of white men were having good lives. That 0.1% would be very important to help. I don't give a shit about, and that is the reality, right? And the other reality is 99.9% of white men aren't doing well. Now, at the very heights of our society, white men are doing well. That's no doubt true. It's also true that white men get a lot of benefit of the doubt. They get a lot of privilege. They get treated as the main character, as the default, and all sorts of other things that are bullshit. But the idea that, if you're white man, therefore everything's fine, why are you complaining? You got the easy mode. Like, it doesn't matter if they got easy mode. It literally doesn't matter if they got easy mode. If they're not reaching dignified life, they are a source of radicalization against the status quo. And if you're a radical, if you're someone who wants to change the status quo, you should be looking at all disaffected people.
If Vaughn had made this observation at a Trump rally, or on X, he might have been led from just asking questions guilelessness to more overt white aggrievement. If he'd made the same point in a liberal arts seminar, or on Blue Sky, he might have been shouted down. When I got to this part of the podcast, I have to admit, my own inner hall monitor was on high alert.
And I don't have this person. My person is, maybe I've just seen too many dead white people. Maybe I've seen maybe it's because I'm white. I don't know. Maybe it's because I'm white. I've seen a lot of suffering people who are white. And I just don't think this if you say there's a lot of guys that are having a bad life and your reaction is, well, they have an easier life than X, Y, and Z, I think that's freak shit. I gotta be honest with you. I think that's freak shit. I think it's a weird reaction.
But Reeves, looking a bit trepidatious, tried to thread the needle, introducing some academic caveats without coming across as a scold. The U.S. has a uniquely terrible history when it comes to slavery, he said. But he also noted that low-income white men were at particularly high risk of suicide. Two things can be true at once, he said.
This is actually my point. This is my strongest point. Is we all know the Southern strategy. We all know the Southern strategy, right? Which is when Republicans stop being overtly racist, they stopped saying N-word, 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 and they started talking about, you know, forced busing and tax cuts and charter schools and things that on net would hurt black people more than whites. So the racism went from explicit to implicit. They went from saying segregation forever to, hey, you know, let's support single family homes in the suburbs. You know, it became a system where the racism and the unfairness was built in and hidden and veiled, and the laws became facially neutral, right? You guys get what I'm saying? How the Southern strategy is, how do we hurt black people more than whites, but we do so in a facially race neutral way. That's systemic racism, right? I'm proposing we do the reverse Southern strategy, which is, what's that? We should do that, but the opposite. What's that mean? I think we should do things that are facially, racially neutral, but they help minorities more than whites. We should do the opposite, where we're going to give everybody universal health care. Well, that helps black people more than white people, but it also does help white people, and that's why it works. Universal healthcare would help black people more than whites because black people are further behind on healthcare. But guess what? There are hundreds of millions of white people, or, you know, who are also struggling with healthcare. So we would help black people more than white people on net, but we would also help white people. And that is what would make them buy into the system. That's the entire political strategy I'm proposing. Let's do the Southern strategy, but in reverse, helping minorities more than white people. But to do so, you help white people and you make them aware that you're helping them, that they don't have the feeling of resentment, that they're not getting something that somebody else is getting. On net, they're getting less, but they're still getting something and they're seeing their life improve. And so they're not going to begrudge others for what they're also getting. It's like if you had two kids, right? And you give one cookie to one kid because he's the younger child, right? And he's had less cookies overall. The older son was eating cookies before the younger child was ever born. So to be fair, to get the cookie consumption to equal, you have to give cookies to the young child that you don't give to the older child, right? Or else you're being unfair because the older child ate a bunch of cookies before the younger child was ever even born. But the moment you start giving cookies just to your younger child and you stop giving them to the older child doesn't see that and go, oh, this is just fairness. They see that and they go, they're getting cookies and I'm not getting. This isn't fair. And they start opposing the cookies to the younger child. They start interfering with the cookies to the younger child because to them, it's not experienced as making up for historical wrong. It is experienced as I'm getting something, they're getting something that I'm not getting, and I didn't do anything wrong. If you want fairness, you need to average out and make these programs universal. This is called political victory. And it just so happens that it's morally right to do it like that. It's morally right to help people that need help, no matter what group they are a part of. And like, this is kind of the issue that I have is it's just like, people want you to say, no, we need to give programs that go to black people because they're black. And if you don't support that, you're a racist. And it's like, does it matter? why this stuff is going to black people as long as their conditions are improving to be the same as white people's conditions? Does it matter why we say we're doing it? Or is it why we do it that matters, or is it the outcome that matters? And to me, the outcome is what matters. And so that's why I'm proposing the reverse Southern strategy, which is we create universal programs that on net help people of color and women and minorities more than white men, but at the same time also help white men in order to get universal buy-in. That is what I'm asking. That's what I call for. And I think that is the only way. So your argument right now about universal healthcare and how minority groups need to be helped more than white people will get less of a portion of the benefit of anyone. Wait, what? No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that white people are far more likely to have health care right now than people of color. But if we do universal health care, if we did Bernie Sanders' Medicare for All system, it would improve the health outcomes of white people as well as black people. But relatively, it would help black people more than white people. Like if say that black people are at 50 and white people are at 70, and universal health care is 100. We take black people from 50 to 100 and white people from 70 to 100. So we have equality at a new higher level. But it gave 50 to black people and 30 to white people. So black people were helped more than white people, but they were both helped and brought up to a higher level. That is the strategy that I'm advocating for. And a lot of liberals are like, no, we need to have a program that brings black people up to 70. That's the difference between me and a liberal. A liberal's like, no, we need to have a means-tested program that just brings black people up to 70. And I think that that is exactly why the Democratic Party is falling down and failing. Oh, we got a lot of stories that are dropping right now. Oh boy. I'm sorry, Chad. I'm just watching this off screen because I can't tell you. It's basically a bunch of deportees being abused by El Salvador police as they arrive at El Salvador. They're having their head shaved. They're being forced into walking in this like hunched over position with full shackles on. They're being dragged by guys in ski masks. There's like some sort of like hip hop beat on it. I think I can show it to you. Typically, when you're doing things that are legal and just, you keep your identity concealed. when you're in the state. There you have it.
The hallmark of social media is disinhibition born of anonymity. On the internet, no one knows whether you're a dog, a Macedonian teenager, or the Pope wearing a puffer jacket. Podcasts, on the other hand, are built on parasociality. Michael Barbaro isn't your friend, but after making coffee with him in your ear 100 times, you start to feel as if you were. And then there's the world of always-on streaming, in which the temptations of parasociality are even more acute. The inputs are both oral and visual. The hosts respond to your comments in real time, at all hours. You can remind yourself not to bond with the pixels on the screen, but you may fall for the illusion all the same, like a baby chick imprinting on a robot. Piker treats fans in a way that can be confusingly intimate, giving them avuncular life advice one minute and thirst trap photos the next. His Twitch handle is Hasanabi, Abi being Turkish for Big Brother. His fans are called Hasanabi heads or parasocialists. Even as most of his fellow streamers have drifted to the right, Piker has remained a staunch leftist. His explanation for this is that he is from Turkey, where the idea that American economic and military power runs the world, that was like, yeah, duh. He was born in New Jersey and grew up mostly in Ankara and Istanbul, in an upper-middle-class family, spending summers with relatives in the U.S. and watching a lot of American TV. He speaks English with an American accent. His father, an economist, is more of a neo-lib World Bank-loving type, Piker told me. We argue about it all the time, but it's not heated. His mother, an art and architecture historian, is more aligned with his politics. The inequality is just so blatant, she told me. It was never fair, but now we have the internet. Everyone can see it. Despite Piker's brand as a brash outsider, he is, in an almost literal sense, a Nepo baby. After graduating from Rutgers in 2013, he moved to Los Angeles and got a job with his maternal uncle, Cenk Uygur, who happened to be the founder and host of The Young Turks, one of the biggest left populist talk shows on the internet. The show had a considerable footprint on YouTube, but Piker helped it adapt to punchier formats that were better suited to Facebook and Instagram. You've got to understand, I remember when this was a pudgy kid and I was changing his diapers, Uygur told me. Now, suddenly, he's this handsome man, he's dynamic, he's killing it in front of the camera. Piker hosted a recurring video segment called Agitprop and picked fights with the right-wing influencers of the day, such as Tommy Lahren and Representative Dan Crenshaw. He got himself in trouble. America deserved 9/11 was not a particularly good take, even in context, but he also expanded his name recognition. In 2017, BuzzFeed dubbed him Woke Bae. Although he made some of the outlet's most popular videos, he didn't own.
He didn't say America deserved 9/11 like the sense of the people who died on 9/11 deserve to be killed. He was talking about America's foreign policy created Al-Qaeda, which led to blowback. That's what he meant. And when he said America deserved 9/11, he was not talking about America, you and me, or the people who died. He was talking about the American state.
IP. Even when the boss is your uncle, you can still be alienated from the means of production. So in 2020, he decided to go solo, on Twitch. His mother joined him in Los Angeles, and they formed a pandemic pod in a 2-bedroom apartment. He was on there nonstop, shouting about video games or sex advice or whatever, she told me. His fans would see me in the background, cringing, and they would send me earplugs in the mail. That year, he spent 42% of his time live on camera. Not 42% of his waking hours, 42% of all the hours in the year. In a call-in segment called Chadvice, Piker coached men through the small terrors and triumphs of daily life. One 28-year-old from Finland described himself as having an Asperger's diagnosis and an abject fear of rejection. Piker, with solicitude and just enough amiable ribbing, spent half an hour talking.
I will say this about fear of rejection. It's normal, but it's also like, who cares?
Him through the social mechanics of a first date. When Twitch first launched, it was a niche platform where bored adolescents could watch other adolescents play video games. In 2014, Amazon bought it for nearly $1 billion, an eye-popping amount at least back then, even as mainstream analysts knew almost nothing about it. My demographic hem is showing, the columnist David Carr admitted in the Times. Still, he concluded, there is clear value in owning so much screen time of a hard-to-reach demographic of young men. One article referred to Twitch as talk radio for the extremely online. I first met Piker in February of 2020 on Boston Common while covering a rally during Bernie Sanders' presidential campaign. Most of us traveling correspondents were youngish reporters from oldish outlets, wearing blue button-downs and carrying notebooks in the back pockets of our bonobos.
AKA Nepo babies, AKA elite, the second sons of the elite. Back in the Middle Ages, you used to send the second or third son to the church. Now you send the second or third son to be a journalist.
Piker wasn't much younger, but he dressed as if he were from another planet, in black nail polish and cargo pants that, at the time, struck me as incomprehensibly wide. He carried an IRL backpack, a portable camera setup that streamers use, I learned, when they venture out into the world. Admirers in the crowd kept interrupting him and asking for photos, a nuisance that, for whatever reason, didn't afflict the rest of us.
Because nobody knows who the fuck you are, bro. Although this story is really well written. I've been enjoying this. Not to be hateful, but like Pepe La who?
I still didn't get why viewers would hang around on his stream all day when they could get an unimpeded view of Sanders' speech on YouTube. Obviously, my demographic him was showing. You might as well ask why a fan would watch a football game at a bar when he could concentrate better alone, or read a summary of the game in tomorrow's paper. Piker's followers wanted to watch the rally through his eyes because they wanted to be his friend.
It's not quite that. That's not quite right. Your demographic hem is still showing. That's not quite right. People are not watching this with me because they want to be my friend necessarily. That's not true. Maybe some of the people here do want to be my friend. And I'm sure if we met in person, it would be we'd all vibe really well. But, well, maybe not all, but you get it. Most of us, right? It's not quite that. It's more like I'm somebody they could trust and they could talk to and they can ask questions through and who knows a little bit more. It's not, it's about having, it's also part of being a community of like-minded people that are all together. I think the bar was closer. It's about learning. It's about community. It's about trust. It's about, the fact that I have my own perspective that vibes more with what they believe. There's a lot of overlapping shit. It's not just about being a sad, pathetic internet loser who wants a friend, which is kind of the way I read this sentence. At least for you, most of us watch because you offer a very left-wing angle to things. That too.
In October 2020, Piker spent a couple of hours playing the group video game, Among Us, with some special guests, including the Congresswoman Ilhan Omar.
And he said he was going to invite me, and he never did. He said he was going to invite me and Trihex, and then we never got invited. Doesn't that suck? Like, oh, they want to bring on Pokimane. Oh, let's bring on Pokimane instead. And Corpse Husband. And Disguised Toast.
And Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. They occasionally mentioned the ostensible purpose of the event, getting out the vote, but mostly they made easygoing small talk. On Election Day, Piker streamed for 16 hours straight, chugging energy drinks. His mother made several on-screen cameos, delivering him plates of home-cooked food. I wouldn't do it for this long if it wasn't for you, he told his viewers at the end of the night. Love you, bro, a commenter typed. See you tomorrow. After the 2024 election, Democratic strategists argued that what the anti-Trump coalition needed was a Joe Rogan of the left. There once was such a person. His name was Joe Rogan. I'm socially about as liberal as it gets, Rogan said earlier this month. He has a live and let live attitude about sex, drugs, and abortion. He is also extremely open to conspiracy theories about 9/11, JFK, and Jeffrey Epstein, an inclination that was left coded until very recently. In 2014, when Rogan was a fan of the Young Turks, Piker met him at the Hollywood Improv, and they sat and talked for 2 hours. The topics included weed, psychedelics, the state of media, and girls, Piker wrote at the time. Top 10 coolest moments of my life. During the 2020 Democratic primary, Rogan interviewed 3 presidential candidates, Tulsi Gabbard, Andrew Yang, and Bernie Sanders, and concluded that Sanders was his favorite. "I believe in him," Rogan said. "He's been insanely consistent his entire life." It's hard to fathom now, but Rogan's support was then considered a liability. The Sanders campaign must reconsider this endorsement, the Human Rights Campaign wrote, citing transphobic and racist remarks from Rogan's past. In retrospect, this was the height, or perhaps the nadir, of a kind of purity test politics that was making some swing voters, including Rogan, feel less at home in the Democratic coalition. In 2022, Neil Young removed his music from Spotify to protest Rogan's vaccine skepticism. Rogan took ivermectin, which CNN mocked as a horse dewormer. "I can afford people medicine, motherfucker," Rogan told CNN's chief medical correspondent, adding that the medication had been prescribed by his doctor. This is ridiculous. In 2016, every one of Trump's baby steps toward normalization, doing a goofy dance on Saturday Night Live, getting his hair ruffled by Jimmy Fallon, was treated as a scandal.
I will say this. Like, it wasn't a liability. And in fact, I was one of those people that was super pissed at AOC for, she did some hall monitor ass bullshit over this Joe Rogan stuff. What a fucking loser, by the way. This is that was like one of the first times where I was like, AOC, what are you doing? Like, you're being kind of dumb. I don't care if Joe Rogan says dumb shit about some issues. Because if he says Bernie Sanders is good, it doesn't matter if he says transphobic shit. I'll say this again. If Joe Rogan convinces his audience to vote for Bernie Sanders, it doesn't matter if he has other bad takes, because those other bad takes are not controlling public policy. The moment you vote for Bernie Sanders, your opinions on trans rights go away. And Bernie Sanders' opinions are the ones that become important. So once we convince him to vote for Bernie Sanders, he can have all sorts of dumb fuck opinions and they no longer matter. That's what politics does. Joe Rogan has expressed clearly transphobic. Here's what I wrote at the time, January 24th, 2020. Joe Rogan has expressed clearly transphobic views in the past. However, the ultimate expression of political power most people exercise in this system is their vote. By voting for and advocating on behalf of Bernie Sanders, Joe Rogan is beginning to undo that harm. We're winning. Again, my takes are always right. The Bernie on Rogan attacks were bad faith attacks by Warren-aligned radlibs that wanted to keep the party out of the hands of an actual left-wing leader. We saw that pretty nonstop during 2020. See, the left had the support of Joe Rogan. It's just that he supported Bernie. And when Sanders tried to use that platform to reach young men, you liberals attacked him for it. This is more delusional than the idea that Nick Fuentes' cockholster is going to be the left's Joe Rogan. I forgot I said that about Destiny. Nick Fuentes' cockholster. Oh shit, I forgot I said that about Destiny. You're part of an avalanche of useful idiots that will trip up the campaign and have us talking about Joe Rogan tweets instead of groundbreaking progressive platform that will transform the lives of millions of people. Seriously, get your priorities straight. A lot of online-only slacktivists need to understand that we are in a primary. Spending your time dogging Sanders is scab behavior. You're doing nothing but providing ammunition for libs and reactionaries. Get your head out of your ass. Respectfully, fuck off. I'm volunteering as much as anyone. I'm expressing a valid opinion. carrying water for liberal concern trolling is damaging behavior. That's the same thing as, like, for example, calling Bad Empanada anti-Semitic. You are a fucking dumbass if you do that. You are a complete fucking dumbass. This is a valid opinion. Sorry, I have a nuanced opinion, but I also don't think you know what my opinion is. You're just reacting. I said you're part of an avalanche of useful idiots that will trip up the campaign and have us talking about Joe Rogan tweets instead of the groundbreaking progressive platform that will transform the lives of millions of people. Seriously, get your priorities straight. These dumb fucks fell for it. Stop falling for it. It's dangerous. She usually sticks to rote talking points to difficult questions. I don't think a long-form hostile interview with Rogan is a good idea. I think her campaign understand the limitations of the candidate. I think if Kamala Harris had gone on Joe Rogan, she probably would have lost a couple more states. She would have been she would have fallen apart. If I'm being honest.
But by 2024, anyone with access to Spotify or YouTube could find hours of flattering footage of Trump looking like a chill, approachable grandpa. While interviewing Trump at one of his golf clubs, Theo Von used his free associative style to great effect, prompting as much introspection in Trump as any interviewer has. Von: cocaine will turn you into a damn owl, homie. Trump: and is that a good feeling? Trump invited the Nelk Boys, prank video influencers with their own brand of hard seltzer, to eat Chick-fil-A on his private plane. He sat in a Cybertruck with a baby-faced, fascist-curious streamer, Aiden Ross, testing the stereo. Who's like your top 3 artists? Ross asked. Well, we love Frank Sinatra, right? Trump said. Ross invited him to pick a song, and Trump, thinking that it's going to come back under proper management, picked California Dreamin'.
Donald Trump does not listen. I mean, the only music that Donald Trump listens to is show tunes. That's actually
Collectively,
true.
These shows reached tens of millions of potential voters. Most were presumably young men, many of them the kind of American who was both the hardest and the most crucial for a campaign to reach, the kind who was not seeking out political news. Trump ended his parasocial media tour by sitting in Joe Rogan's studio in Austin.
Wrong. Phantom of the Opera and Cats. What the fuck do you think show tunes means? I swear to God, you fucking Zoomers don't know what words mean. I forget that people's vocabularies and experiences are so fucking narrow. I forget that sometimes. Jesus fucking Christ. Show tunes are the music that is played at shows.
"3 hours. That's too long for anyone, even a champion of rhetorical rope-a-dope, to go without gaffes, which was part of the point. While repeating his time-worn case that the 2020 election was rigged, Trump let out a shocking Freudian slip. I lost by, before quickly trying to recover. I didn't lose. Rogan laughed in his face. No one cared. On YouTube alone, the episode got more than 50 million views, and the reaction was overwhelmingly positive. Unedited, uncensored interviews should be required of all candidates, one of the top comments read.
In fact, there's something they're not talking about. God, there's this like really, really top golfer. Fuck, what's his name? What the fuck is his name? He has a YouTube channel. Oh, there it is. Bryson DeChambeau. He has a YouTube channel. And Trump played a round of golf with him. And it was probably one of the best political ads I've ever seen.
Break 50 is...
Can I break 50 with President Donald Trump?
Welcome back to Break 50.
14 million views. This is the type of shit I'm talking about. Where, like, legitimately, I think that when I saw this video and I watched a lot of it, I knew that Donald Trump was going to win. That's what I started in my mind, being like, oh yeah, Donald Trump's got this in the bag. Because Bryson DeChambeau is got such a personable, like, you know, he is so good at YouTube. And I was like, there's Joe Biden is fucked. If you don't know anything about golf, basically they're playing a type of golf called scramble, which is where you do cooperative golf, where both players hit, and then you play from the best shot, right? And then you keep doing that. So every shot I get a chance to do the shot, then you get a chance to do the shot. Then we pick the best shot of us two, and then we go play that ball. And you're trying to see how low you could score. And they're trying to break 50. Breaking 50, typically on a golf course, par is around 70, maybe 68. Okay? And so to break 50 basically means you're birdieing every hole, which means you're hitting one under par for every hole, which is extremely hard, right? This is like almost impossible. And Bryson here is one of the best golfers ever, or at least best golfers currently, right? So Donald Trump they're trying to break 50. I mean, that just even trying to do that is a sign of incredible respect for Donald Trump's golf game. Let me see if I can. What is the best clip of this? Well, let's go where the peaks are.
Good step. Pretty damn good.
I'll take right a little bit.
Okay.
About 1.5 feet out, up the hill, pretty good. Oh, that's pretty solid, actually. That's really nice. That's a good putt, though.
Okay.
Nice putt.
A very good step. Pretty damn good,
I'll take
partner.
that. That's solid. It's gonna be a big putt here.
He never thought about a putter.
All right, knock this putt in there,
Okay.
partner. Yeah, it's
How's
just
that
like
going now?
center to right center. Yeah. Yep.
What do you see that right?
Notice that there's a black man telling them what to do. Golf is such a fucking... It's so funny. So caddies are people who carry your clubs and they give you advice in the game. It's so funny to see them getting coached by a black caddy. It's so funny. So typical.
Oh, there we go. I love it. Nice. Good putt. That away.
He washed it in. He made sure it went in.
That thing definitely
That
went
was-
in. Hey, great
I
job.
thought I pulled it. I did pull it, actually.
That's how you do it.
That's
He
all
makes
right.
the putts. I hit the drives. I love it.
Bryson, would you ever putt
They
for
did, they did. That was a fucking eagle. Oh my God. Like, this is what I'm talking about. Like, Trump putted an eagle. Like,
you?
If it's super into the grain.
More and more people are doing it, right?
Yeah.
now, the thing is, if you're not a golfer, you see this and you're like, who cares? The point is, though, that Donald Trump is a golfer. And there's a lot of people that like golf. And here he is exposing himself to 55 minutes of just talking to a very popular pro, golfing, being a normal human being. And this is just politician goldmine. Did you see Kamala Harris ever do anything like this? Just complete and utter catastrophe, because she's just not even playing in new media and Donald Trump is dominating it.
Harris tried. She appeared on a few big podcasts, Club Shay Shay, whose audience is primarily black, and Call Her Daddy, whose audience is mostly female. But she never made inroads with the comedy bros. The closest she got was an interview with Howard Stern, a former shock jock who now seems wholesome, like Little Richard in the era of Lil Baby. Harris's staffers tried to get her booked on Hot Ones, the YouTube show in which celebrities answer innocuous questions while eating sadistically spicy chicken wings, but even Hot Ones turned her down. Her campaign staffers insisted that she wanted to do Rogan's show, but that it fell through for scheduling reasons. Rogan claimed that he was eager to interview her, and that he was even willing to keep certain topics off limits. I said, I don't give a fuck, he told Theo Vaughn. I feel like if you give someone a couple of hours and you start talking about anything, I'm going to see the pattern of the way you think, whether you're calculated or whether you're just free. Imagine the set of a prototypical man cave podcast, and Flagrant, co-founded by the comedian Andrew Schultz, wouldn't be far off. 4 dudes lounging around with a few plastic plants and a shelf of brown liquor behind them. Trump sat with them in October, and Schultz and the other hosts buttered him up, asking him about his kids. Barron is 18, Schultz said. He's unleashed in New York City. Are you sure you want to reverse Roe v. Wade now? An hour in, they cut to an ad break. Hard dick season is upon us, and you got to make sure that you're stiffed up, Schultz said. Blue Chew has got your back. Flagrant is taped weekly at a studio in Soho. I visited one Wednesday in February. Schultz arrived just after noon, opened a fridge stocked with cans of tequila and THC-infused seltzer, and grabbed a bottle of water. He sports a mustache and a chain necklace, and his hair is tied on the sides and slicked back on top. During a show at Madison Square Garden, a fellow comedian described Schultz's look as the Tubi version of Adolf Hitler. He's a throwback to an old New York archetype, the melting pot white guy who tells hyper-specific ethnic jokes with a sly smile and, for the most part, gets away with it. He did a crowd work special that included sections called Mexican, Colombian, and Black women. His newest special, about his wife's experience with IVF, includes moments of real tenderness, but he still insists on his right to do old-fashioned bits about the battle between the sexes. We all have feelings that are a little bit wrong, Schultz said. Take my wife, please. That's a fucked up premise, but there's a seed of a feeling there that's real. It's the comedian's job to make you comfortable enough to laugh at it. Schultz grew up in Lower Manhattan, where his parents owned a dance studio.
Oh my god, dude. I hate these faux populist rich kids. Jesus fucking Christ. Our fascists are the gayest fascist in history. And there's a lot of fascism that is gay, but like, Jesus fucking Christ. I grew up in Lower Manhattan and my parents owned a dance studio, and that's why I must tell you that I'm a bro. Give me a fucking break.
He went to public school. My family was super liberal, he told me. This was in the 90s, when being a liberal, to me, just meant I don't hate gay people or black people. Normal shit. He now thinks of himself as apolitical, and he acknowledged all the reasons to distrust Trump, but the word he kept using whenever Trump came up was enticing. I still appreciate a lot of the policies Bernie talked about, universal health care and all that, he said. But culture-wise, vibe-wise, when all you hear from one side is, that's not funny, that's over the line, realistically, where are people going to feel more comfortable? Trump is known for his bloviate.
I told you guys, see what I mean about, like, Mike from PA's analysis on point again. This is this downscale shit. And the thing with Donald Trump is he successfully allies groups that are contradictory. That's what the side of a successful politician. When two sides that should never align are somehow aligning through the personhood of a leader, that's how you know you're winning. And like, Donald Trump has these guys saying, oh yeah, I'm voting for the Christo-fascist Republican Party. Like, how the fuck do you lose Joe Rogan to Ted fucking Cruz? That's fucking insane.
But Schultz suggested that his greater talent may be a kind of listening. Democrats are tuned into what people should feel, he said. Trump is tuned into what people actually fucking feel.
This is why you need to listen to regular people, because they say stupid bullshit, but they also say stuff that you should sit up and listen to. And this is it. The Democrats are not a Democratic Party. Everybody understands that. Everybody intuits it. And whether or not you dislike Trump, and I despise Trump more than you, Donald Trump authentically represents the Republican Party base. Right-wingers feel that Donald Trump is listening to them, whether he is or not. They feel like he is. Nobody on the left thinks Kamala motherfucking Harris is listening to us, or Chuck Schumer, or Hakeem Jeffries, or any of these fucking losers.
Schultz noted that, as a boundary-pushing performer, this was also one of his own key skills. gauging micro fluctuations in an audience's reaction.
I said this the other day, but the best definition of comedy that I've ever heard of is getting away with it. You're a good comedian when you're getting away with it. And if you aren't getting away with it, you're a hack. And the best example of a person who always gets away with it, to me, is Stabby. Stabby gets away with it. And that's why he's funny as fuck. Bill Burr gets away with it. He's funny as fuck.
When Trump appeared on Flagrant, he talked about being taken to a hospital in rural Pennsylvania after he was shot, and how impressed he was with the country doctors who'd treated him. I laughed at that, because I just thought country doctors was a funny phrase, Schultz told me. He clocks me laughing at it, and in the next sentence, he immediately says it again, and he watches me to make sure I laugh again. Flagrant bills itself
Because Donald Trump is a Manhattan, prissy, show tunes listening, rich kid, fucking lib. So of course he looks down on his own supporters and fuck up, bumblefuck Pennsylvania. And he thinks they're subhuman. Oh my God, it's so fucking funny. God damn it. I fucking, on a certain sense, I love Donald Trump's ability to trick these people. It's almost funny. It is honestly not almost funny. It is funny.
as the greatest hang in the universe. I spent the rest of the day watching Schultz and his co-hosts tape an episode, and then an extra segment sponsored by an online betting platform, and then an extra segment for Patreon. And I could imagine some places in the universe that would have been greater. One of the running gags in the episode was that the hosts kept pronouncing the word pre-recorded as pre-retarded. At one point, a host volunteered how many times he'd masturbated in a single day, and his record was so formidable that the others looked worried for him. In fairness, though, even a solid hang can't be scintillating all the time. One function of a long-standing friendship, including a parasocial one, is simply to while away the hours, even when there isn't much to say. When it comes to parasocial media, MAGA has had a long head start. Before Dan Bongino was Trump's deputy FBI director, he was a popular, blustery podcaster. After Matt Gaetz withdrew from consideration as Attorney General, he announced that he would host a TV show and a podcast, his third. During the Biden administration, about a dozen Republicans were both active podcast hosts and sitting members of Congress, while most Democrats hardly seemed interested in trying. Before the Flagrant taping, Schultz and I had been discussing which qualities the Democrats should look for in their next crop of leaders, and afterward he returned to the question. They need someone who can really hang, he said. Obama could hang. Clinton, for sure. Bill, not Hillary. Trump can hang. I ran through the short list. Pete Buttigieg? Schultz wrinkled his nose. Too polished. AOC? When she's being the working-class chick from the Bronx, I could see it, he said. But when she starts going on MSNBC and doing, we have an orange rapist in the White House, then you start to lose people.
He's completely right. Whenever AOC tries to act as a Democratic partisan, she chokes up too much on the bat and she sucks. Like, that's the thing. Like, if she's just swinging away like a populist, she hits. When she's like, I'm gonna do a play where I attack the Republicans as a Democrat partisan, she strikes out every time. Every time she tries to be this calculating politician, she does a really bad job.
Schultz said that he'd invited Kamala Harris and Tim Walz to appear on the show numerous times to no avail. The Harris campaign says that Schultz never sent a formal invitation. He couldn't be sure why Walz had stayed away from podcasts like his, but he had guesses. If we've got on a guy who was in the military for 20 years, at some point I'm going to go, cut the shit, Tim. You know how guys really talk, Schultz said. And then let's say we start busting balls, making gay jokes, whatever. Does he laugh? If he does, he pisses off his people.
That's the reality. If you are with a bunch of people that are going to be hall monitor losers, you're going to lose then people aren't going to like you.
Yeah. Have you done
microplastic
22
proteins?
and me?
A 22 and me?
Like one of those like genealogy
23 and me,
things?
dumbass?
23 and me? I don't fucking know.
idiot.
Does Hasan not know that we have 46 chromosomes or 23 pairs of chromosomes? Does he not know that? 22 in me. What the fuck kind of...
I don't
fucking idiot.
Why would I
22
know?
and me.
I've never done it. I don't know. I don't even know what it's fucking
That's
called.
so stupid to call it that. To get it wrong by one digit doesn't even make sense. No, you actually have a 20. Yeah, you have an extra chromosome. You need to take a 24 in me,
Okay,
Hassan.
so
A 25 in me. You have
20.
some kind of rare Turkish form of Down syndrome where you get 2 extras.
Yeah, me and Shane, we avoided it by a slim margin. Okay, listen.
It only affects the way you decide to dress.
Okay, dude. Yeah. Have you done
Microplastic.
So good, dude. That's what I'm talking about. That's what the left should be right there. That's what the left should be. Notice that with Stavy, he's jolly. There's no malice. Like, that's why he gets away with it, because there's no malice. Yeah, he's a perverted hungry little gremlin. But he's there to make everyone feel good about themselves. But even when he's making fun of you, he makes you feel good about yourself. He gets to he examines your insecurities, or he cracks jokes about something that everybody is thinking, and it's a way of letting your anxiety dissipate over it, right? Like he's able to, and he brings people who are arrogant back down to earth. And he does it in a really pleasant way. That's why he's so good at this. That's because he's a dreamboat. Although he wasn't always that nice on Cumtown, I'll be honest.
If he doesn't, he loses our people. Walls was added to the presidential ticket because he was able to talk like a regular person who could make the opposition seem weird by contrast. But things being as they are, Schultz said, the Democrats can't let a guy like that loose.
I mean, Schultz is dead right on this as well. Like, they picked Walls because he was freewheeling and he was nailing shots of the Republicans. And then they told him to shut the fuck up and say how much he loves attacking Iran.
When Trump was on Flagrant, Akash Singh, a co-host who refers to himself as a moderate, encouraged him to consider practicing self-restraint. What we love about you as comedians is you shoot from the hip, Singh said. If you get elected, would you be a little more mindful of how powerful your words are? I will, Trump said, and I'm going to think of you every time.
Ugh. This is one of the things I don't like about Trump. Trump is the type of guy who likes sycophantic behavior, and so he does it to other people. So it's like, that's such a disrespectful thing to do. I dislike it so much. But somebody like thinks they could butter you up by saying dumb fucking shit like this. That's a real profound expression of disrespect. When somebody flatters you, it's because they think you're stupid. You should remember that.
Let's go, Singh said, jumping up and pumping his fist. I might actually vote. Piker starts streaming at 11 every morning, so everything else has to happen before then, or at night. At 7 a.m. one day, he drove Kaya to a nearby park to take her for a walk, then played basketball for half an hour. He saw me eyeing his car, a Porsche Taycan. It's not the flashiest model I could afford, he protested, before I could say anything. But yes, admittedly, it is a fucking Porsche. When Piker is criticized by the right, it's usually for soft-peddling the brutality of Hamas or the Houthis or the Chinese Communist Party. Piker is such a relentless critic of Israel that, last year, the advocacy group Stop Anti-Semitism nominated him for Anti-Semite of the Year. When asked his opinion of Hezbollah, he once shrugged and replied, I don't have an issue with them. By the left, he is more likely to be dismissed as a limousine socialist who lives in a $2.7 million house. He has his own clothing brand called Ideology. While driving home, he took a call from his manager. A major production company wanted to discuss a potential TV show hosted by Piker in the vein of Borat or Nathan for You. His manager asked if he wanted to be interviewed by Megyn Kelly on her radio show. No. A daytime show on Fox News? No. Buttigieg's people had asked if Piker would interview Buttigieg on his stream. Probably not, but I'll think about it, Piker said. Too centrist.
Honestly, that is so nice of him not to interview Buttigieg. Because if he interviewed Buttigieg, I'd be in the chat going, you fix bread prices. Would you still take the pill if it would turn you ungay, like you said when you were running for president? Would you take the pill to make you take the pill to make you straight, like you said you would? Fucking loser, dude. Honest to God, do you regret when you said when you were scoffing at people who were protesting at your Harvard University for the janitors to have higher wages? You fucking scum. Pete Buttigieg is probably one of the most disgusting slime balls in the entire Democratic Party. And I think falling for him is a sign of a low EQ.
If he's thinking about running for president, I don't really want to be giving him clout. In his kitchen, he took a few fistfuls of supplements. Creatine, fish oil, ashwagandha.
I fucking love Hasan, dude. I fucking love Hasan. I fucking love him so much. He's like, oh yeah, I'm not giving any clout to Pete. Oh. God, he's so fucking cool. He's so fucking cute. What's EQ? Emotional quotient. It's like your ability to read people's intent and empathize and like read their emotions and have empathy and just kind of like whether you can perceive the emotional and other the needs of other people. And like I think of Pete Buttigieg as the type of person who is like legitimately still wearing their hall monitor sash. That's the type of person who likes Pete Buttigieg. The teacher's pet that's like in the middle, center desk in the front row. You have to have like a certain type of orientation toward power that makes you it's like you're just not an independent thinker. I don't know what else to say.
Still on the phone with his manager, he sat at his desktop, skimming stories he might cover. Then, a few minutes before he went live, he started seeing news alerts.
By the way, chat, do you see how the reporter just like this is fucking weird shit? Like, you know what I mean? As soon as you invite a reporter in their house, they're like, everything you do. Oh, what are you eating?
Luigi Mangione, the suspect in the United Healthcare assassination, had just been arrested. Whatever else he'd been planning to talk about was now irrelevant. Holy shit, they got him, Piker told his manager. I gotta go. Mamma mia, he said on air. This is the first day where there will be no Italiophobia on this broadcast. Already.
This is so good.
His chat was full of spaghetti emojis and free Luigi. Piker walked a fine line, celebrating Mangione as hotter than me and speaking in generally exalted terms about the propaganda of the deed, but trying.
Oh no. Oh no. You're not supposed to say that. That's not, you're not allowed to say those words. All right, since it's already been said in mainstream media, propaganda of the deed is the idea that anarchists believe that individuals within the working class should make dramatic political statements by attacking the person of governmental and corporate power. So basically, propaganda of the deed just means kill CEOs and presidents, and the working class will rise up. And like a lot of orthodox Marxists, we don't really agree with that. We think that that doesn't work that well. That you have to organize institution, you have to organize an alternative, and you have to be connected to the working class. And I'm going to come out as a centrist here and say, I think that people underestimate the utility of propaganda of the deed, but I would never encourage you to do it because it's against the law.
To stop short of overtly glorifying murder, which is against Twitch's terms of service. We, of course, do not condone, he said repeatedly. We condemn.
We condemn.
Recently, he was
We
suspended
condemn.
from Twitch for 24 hours after musing that someone may want to kill Rick Scott, the Florida.
That's not what he said. He said Mike Johnson, if he cared about Medicare fraud, would kill Mike Johnson because he's the biggest Medicare fraudster of all time. He did not say that someone should kill Rick Scott. God damn it.
Senator. In fact, he reserved his condemnation for the finger-wagging from the corporate media, as exhibited everywhere from Fox News to CNN. Bro, they can't let anybody have anything, he said later. For 6 hours straight, his chatters sent him links to new information as it emerged. Mangione's Goodreads account, his Twitter history, his high school valedictorian speech. On my own, I would have been tempted to spend the day following the same breadcrumbs, struggling to retrace Mangione's path to radicalization. But it was easier to let Piker and the 40,000 internet sleuths in his chat make sense of it for me. Many of Piker's viewers come to him with inchoate opinions. He aims to mold them. But, he told me of the stream, at the end of the day, it still has to be related.
This is what radical is. This is what I kind of do as well, right? I want you to bring me your insights, and then I want to help you apply leftist ideological frameworks, understand them. That's what radicalization is about. Radicalization is you going like, oh, I can't afford my student loans. I can't afford healthcare. I can't afford my rent. I'll never be able to afford a home. And you suspect the system is unfair because you're doing everything you were always told to do. You work hard. You went to school. You took out the student loans. And you've always tried your hardest to be a good person. And yet your life is fucking stressful and you're not getting, you know, it's my job to explain why that is in a compelling way and then offer you a political strategy that might change those underlying conditions. Right? Like that is what my job is. And why do I want to do that? Well, the answer is that I am a true believer and I want to see humanity advance. And I care about this stuff deeply in my bones. And I know that we could have a much better world. Many of Piker's viewers come to him. Okay, anyway.
And entertaining.
This is so...
One of his maxims is,
I want to cover more New Yorker because they have someone reading the article so I don't have to do it. And it's so awesome. Like, I can rest my voice. This is great.
Read the room. In his case, this means posting many hours of content about nothing in particular. Stavros Halkias, a comedian and a friend of Piker's, told me he's built up enough trust with his audience that if he's being boring and academic for 40 minutes, they'll stick with it until he starts doing something more interesting, playing a Japanese dating simulator or whatever.
Oh, no.
Some days he puts on a Trump hat and streams as Hank Pecker, a Colbert Report-style satirical character updated for the MAGA era. In another room of his house, Piker records a weekly podcast with 3 buddies, an apolitical chat show on which one of the most heated topics of recent debate was proper manscaping technique, and another was whether one of them farted. March, the producer, was proud to tell me that the podcast's audience is about 60% male, which sounds like a lot, but actually most shows in this space are 80-20 male, or 85-15. One theory for this lopsidedness is that, given all the end of men statistics, women have better things to do with their time, such as holding down meaningful jobs.
That's really great that he's got 60% or 40% female on the podcast. That's awesome.
And cultivating lasting relationships, while men are stuck playing video games with their imaginary friends. Recently, on a MAGA Bro podcast, Piker reached across the aisle, adapting 8 hours for what you will to the current decadent moment.
I think the other thing is that women are socialized to actually maintain relationships and men aren't. This is a problem that I have with myself. Is that, and maybe it's mental illness or maybe it's just I'm a man, but that women are socialized to actually do relationship maintenance and men expect people to come to them. And it's like, nah, dude, like if you want to have someone be your friend, you have to like talk to them as your friend constantly. You have to message them all the time. You have to like be relevant to their life. And this is something that men are not they kind of don't think they have to do. And a lot of men are going to be in the chat being like, yeah, based. I could not talk to my friend for 2 months and then we'll meet up and be right where we left off. And it's like, well, that's why you don't have 80 friends, because you're not working to keep them. Like, women are talking to their friends every day.
Deep down inside, most people just want to be comfortable, he said. They want to have a roof over their heads. They want a fucking nice meal, get some pussy, play Marvel Rivals.
True. True. Or bussy. Or for those of you who are really fucking weird, cussy.
In recent years, Piker has stopped using the word retarded, but he still uses the word pussy, even though it may sound misogynist and lame, despite fans who consider the term ableist. I don't give a shit, Piker said. If you can't handle it, then I guess I'm not for you. When his commenters try to tone police him, Piker will often single one of them out and say, "Congratulations, chatter, you've won woke of the day." It's not a compliment. The day after Mangione's arrest,
I think all of us are woke, but you also you don't want to be the woke. You should be woke, but you don't want to be a woke. What that means is, I mean it in the sense, there's two senses of the word woke. The first sense of the word woke comes from Black Americans talking about being aware of structural inequality and racism. And then there's the white liberal version of woke, which is you walk around with your hall monitor sash handing out citation notices like it's fucking Demolition Man and I cursed.
I remember when you were a snot-nosed rookie pilot.
They finally grounded me.
Shit. You're a damn good flyer.
You are fined 2 credits for a violation of the verbal morality statute.
I'll be right back. Thanks a lot, you shit brain.
You are fined. You are fined 5 credits for repeated violations of the verbal morality statute.
So much for the seashells.
Like, that's literally, like, that's the woke that we don't want. We do want the woke where you're politically aware of the world around you. We don't want the woke where you're handing out citations because someone said the no-no word. Now, it doesn't mean there aren't any no-no words, but the idea that you would have spent all your time policing that instead of doing real political work shows that you fucking suck.
Piker had back-to-back interviews with Lena Khan, then the chair of the Federal Trade Commission, whom Piker called the LeBron James of regulators, and with the writer Ta-Nehisi Coates, promoting his new book. In the chat, a user named PoppyJohn36 wrote, "Not to be parasocial, but I love this man." Piker's mother stopped by during the Coates interview. "Hasan, check your messages," she shouted from the kitchen. Piker, grudgingly but dutifully, read his mother's message aloud. "I got this book for the content and fell in love with his writing." "Thank you, Hasan's mom," Coates said. In the living room, Piker's father was sprawled on the couch watching Love Actually. Halkias, the comedian, showed up later that afternoon with a bag of dirty laundry and a calendar featuring photos of himself posing in the nude. While many of
This reporter is absolutely in the Hasan cult now. Oof. I mean, this is what happens, though. This is what Ethan Klein is yelling about. Can you imagine this same reporter going to Ethan Klein's house? Ethan, I know you're watching. Hey, Ethan, if the reporter went to your house, do you think it would sound this cool? Hey, Ethan Klein, do you think if the reporter come and hung out with you, would it be sound this fun and cool? I mean, they wouldn't want to sit on the couch with, oh, fuck. All right, we just pulled the mic off my mic stand. Hold on 1 second. I got to fix this. Back to the video. Fuck.
Halkias' comedian friends have taken a reactionary turn. He has stuck to his progressive principles, but he has never been a hall monitor. He got his start on a podcast called Cumtown. "Ladies and gentlemen, boys, girls, and NBs," Piker said, "we've got the left's Joe Rogan here in the building." In the Rogan of the Left discourse, both Piker and Halkias are frequently mentioned as top prospects. Even if they were secretly flattered by the designation, the least alpha thing they could do, the least Roganesque thing they could do, would be to thirst for it. Free Luigi, Halkia said, taking a seat. He's too sexy to be behind bars.
True. Like, God, honestly, I wanna give my hats off to the writing in this article. Though at the beginning I said journalists are not your friends, you could see why they have value, right? Because telling a story with text is a very difficult thing to do well, and he's just nailing it, man. And like, I think he's stirring some of the emotions in such a way that it almost feels like he's like really explaining it to boomers so well. It's kind of crazy.
As a model for the future of progressive media, Piker checks only some of the requisite boxes. A while back, he was a guest on Flagrant. When I asked one of the show's staffers about Piker's performance, he gave it a middling review. Good guy, clearly knows his shit, but he sort of comes off like he thinks he's the smartest guy in the room. Piker sometimes succumbs to the socialist bro.
Yeah, I mean, this is the really hard part, right? Like, this is the hard part because, like, the thing is, to be a leftist in America, you have to, quite frankly, if you're going to be a leftist content creator or leader, you have to have read a lot and thought a lot. And you have to be able to resist a lot of pressure. So you have to be a man of history. Like, and I hate to put it in so fucking a lame way, but it's true. Like, you're not going to be a left winger in America if you're a conformist. So you have to know your shit. And the problem is, like, there's this kind of vulgar democratic principle in America, which is like, since all of us have one vote, there's this belief that all opinions are created equal, right? Like, your opinion is only one vote, and my opinion is only one vote. So I have the right to my opinion, and you have the right to your opinion. And the problem with that is that's not true. If your opinion is that the sky is motherfucking green, and we can open the window and look outside and see that it's not fucking green, your opinion is crap. And if you convince a bunch of other idiots to say the sky is green, it doesn't make it motherfucking green. And so, like, you know, that is kind of an issue that we run into, is whenever we have a conversation about, especially about politics, you have to bring it down. That's why I like to ask questions as opposed to do what is being described here as pedantry, which is like doing a fucking lecture, because I want people to draw the conclusions themselves. That's what I think is the most persuasive way to talk to someone, is not to tell them what you want them to believe, but ask the questions in such a way that they arrive at the conclusion themselves from their own. Like, you set up the premises and you let them make the deductions and the inferences. You don't tell them the conclusion.
Was cardinal sin of pedantry, and he can seem like a jejune know-it-all trying to reduce any societal problem to a one-word culprit, usually capitalism or imperialism. Some segments of the Democratic coalition would find Piker to be edgy or crass or even despicable. But if Rogan of the left is to mean anything, it would surely mean a higher tolerance for controversy, even at the risk of alienating parts of the base. On the scale of whether you're calculated or whether you're just free, Piker is freer than most Democratic surrogates, Ivy League overachievers who sound like chatbots trained on...
by the way, Chat, that is what Destiny and Ethan Klein are also trying to do as a secondary objective, right? Their primary objective of Ethan Klein and Destiny is to get us banned, right? And because they're not on Twitch, they don't give a shit what Twitch's content standards are. So their secondary objective is, if they can't get us banned, they want to create such a Byzantine variety of rules that we can't speak freely. So they'll be able to go on their stream and scream the N-word and how everyone is an R-slur, right? But we won't be able to say, you know, anything hyperbolic without fear of being banned. And that makes us, that'll make us sound more stilted. That'll make us sound less authentic. So that is, and therefore will be less popular because we sound fake, right? So that is kind of the strategy that, you know, they're all trying to create, right? And ultimately, at the end, I just have one response to Ethan Klein. Fuck you and enjoy the decline, you fucking loser. And as for Destiny, you're going to prison, bitch. All right, let's keep going.
Stacks of campaign brochures. But he is less free than the average MAGA bro, who is unconstrained by the need for any consistent ideology. He's funny, but not that funny, Halkias told me. You can't tell him I said that. Halkias has his own podcast, on which he gives advice to callers. On the normier part of the spectrum are liberal influencers like Dean Withers and Harry Sisson, who have transferred the debate me bro spirit of early YouTube to TikTok Live.
Ugh. Harry Sisson and Dean Withers are some of the worst content creators on the entire internet. They fucking suck.
One afternoon in LA, I visited the office of Crooked Media, which was decorated with some Yes We Can iconography and had glass-walled conference rooms with cheeky names such as Sedition and Conspiracy. When the company began in 2017, its 3 founders, former Obama staffers named John Lovett, Tommy Vitor, and John Favreau, were treated as audacious upstarts, challenging the media hierarchy. Now they are middle-aged bosses in Henleys and tapered jeans. We sat in legitimate political discourse. A long table had been laid with LaCroix and popcorners. We have become the out-of-touch lib establishment, Vitor said. Lovett added, my, how time flies.
Oh, this is shit that I would
Crooked
wear.
now has more than a dozen podcasts, including its flagship show, Pod Save America. Vitor recounted a time, a few years back, when a friend invited him to appear on a show put out by Barstool Sports, a broy podcast network that leans right. Vitor, worried about guilt by association, turned it down. Looking back, that was so stupid, he said. The how dare you platform someone you disagree with era is over. Fuck that. He has since appeared on the show. In 2018, Favreau was hosting a show called The Wilderness about how the Democratic Party lost its way and wanted to include a clip of Obama reaching out to the white working class. A younger producer listened and went, I'm not sure this plays well today, Favreau said. And I went, that's part of the problem. After the 2024 election, Piker appeared on Pod Save America. Lovett got pushback from moderate fans who objected to Piker's anti-Zionism and from progressive fans who objected to Lovett's next interview with a Democrat who wants restrictions on trans women in sports. But he shrugged it off. It's a big tent, Lovett said. It's got Dick Cheney in it. It's got Hasan Piker in it.
Actually, that kind of tent is one without walls and will provide no shelter in the storm. And so nobody will shelter under it. And it'll find the wider you make it, the less protection it provides, and the more people that will go elsewhere. And that's the problem the Democratic Party has. Because it doesn't stand for anything, it protects no one. And therefore, why the fuck are you there? By the way, this is the John Lovett mentality in a nutshell, and it shows why Pod Save America is garbage.
The Rogan of the left formulation isn't entirely vacuous, but it's easy to misinterpret. Rogan-like figures can't be engineered. They have to develop organically. Their value lies in their idiosyncrasies, their passionate insistence on talking about chimps and ancient pyramids, say, rather than the budget ceiling, and in their authenticity, which entails an aversion to memorizing talking points.
That's not quite right, but that's almost right. I would give this a B+ if I was grading this sentence. It's that talking points themselves are signs of inauthenticity, right? And what I mean by that is it is what a politician adopts as a canned response because they are worried about talking extemporaneously and authentically, and that causing them some sort of problem. It's a media strategy that comes from corporate America. It comes from PR. It comes from Madison Avenue. It comes from advertising mentality. It is not political grassroots organizing. It is not about community. It's not about justice. It comes from a position of manipulation and being polished and fake. And so it's not that, like, talking points could be read to mean simply arguments that you make. Or it could also be read as a kind of vacuous puff of air to distract the audience.
Many Democrats assume that what they have is a messaging problem, that voters don't have a clear enough sense of what the Democrats are really like.
That's not true. The Democrats don't really like anything. That's the problem. The Democratic Party doesn't stand for anything. So there's nothing to message.
But it's possible that the problem is the opposite, that many swing voters, including Joe Rogan, got a sense of what the Democrats were like, then ran in the opposite direction. The good news for Democrats is that the right does not have a monopoly on relatability. A week before his interview with Trump, Theo Von conducted an interview with Bernie Sanders while wearing a Grateful Dead shirt. You ever see the Grateful Dead? Von said, as an icebreaker. Sanders, apparently unfamiliar with the concept, frowned and said, no. From any other politician, this would have been malpractice. But with Sanders, the crankiness is part of the crossover charm. He literally just talks common sense, one of the top YouTube comments read.
I'm sorry,
A few
Chad, I
months
read ahead
later,
a little bit.
Rogan interviewed Senator John Fetterman. Trump is not polished, but you get a sense of who he is as a human being, Rogan said. Fetterman agreed, alluding to a line from Scarface. All I have in this world is my balls and my word.
Which Trump has neither. John Fetterman, you are such a fucking worthless sack of shit, dude.
Reeves, the social scientist, told me, there is a strong correlation between which Democratic lawmakers are in my inbox and which ones have the year 2028 circled on their calendar. Senator Chris Murphy of Connecticut read Reeves's book in 2023 and praised it on X. Many of Murphy's constituents, including his 14-year-old son, took issue with his post. Nevertheless, he persisted, writing a follow-up on Substack. We should try to do two things at once. Fight for the equality of women and gay people, while also trying hard to figure out why so many boys are struggling and why so many men are feeling shitty. Sanders and Fetterman share what could be described as populist instincts, but ideologically, they are leagues apart. On the level of pure effect, though, they may represent elements of a style that other politicians could crib from. Personally, I find the performance of masculinity to be totally boring, Hannah Rosen told me. But if that's what 51% of Americans need, someone who reads as some version of gruff, manly dude, but whose heart is still in the right place, then I'm willing to go along with it. Twitch stars often appear on one another's streams, hoping to pick up some new fans. One afternoon, Piker headed to Zoo Culture, a gym in Encino owned by a streamer and fitness influencer named Bradley Martin, to do a collab. It would also feature Jason Nguyen, a 20-year-old Twitch star from Texas who goes by Jason the Ween. Bradley's a big Trump guy, and we talk politics sometimes, but mostly we just talk about gym bro shit, Piker told me. Jason probably leans Trump if I...
Hannah Rosen seems like an absolute freak. In 2009, she published a controversial article entitled "The Case Against Breastfeeding." Huh? Weird, dude. Like, what are you talking about, man? Like, come on. What the fuck?
to guess, but his content isn't really political at all. I don't lean towards anyone, Nguyen wrote when reached for comment. I don't want anything to do with politics. Crying emoji. By the time we got to the gym, Nguyen...
Ugh. I'm sorry, guys. Like, this is... There's like this like toxic... I don't even know. I mean, I'm just an old man, dude. I don't vibe with adolescence, man. Like that's really all it is. Like I didn't vibe with that kind of shit, and I don't. You know, I just can't. I just don't vibe with adolescence, man.
was already there, performing for the camera by flirting with a woman on a weight bench. Is Jason rizzing right now? Piker asked Martin, who nodded. Is it working? Piker asked the woman. She replied, a little bit. Before she left, she gave Nguyen her Discord handle. Bradley, I've got something for you, Piker said, removing his long-sleeved shirt. Underneath, he was wearing a tank top with a Rambo-style cartoon of Trump and the words, Let's go, Brandon. I was coming into hostile territory, so I had to fit in, Piker said. It's perfect, Martin said. Martin, who is 6'3" and 260 pounds, looks vaguely like Bradley Cooper on steroids. Martin has taken testosterone supplements.
Oh, fuck, man. bro.
Which Piker once brought up in a jocular debate about trans rights. You do hormone replacement therapy, so why can't they? Nguyen is much smaller. My chat just said there's 3 muscleheads in the gym right now, Nguyen joked, not even pretending to look at his phone. Piker roasted Nguyen with a fake comment from his own chat. Jason looks like a twink. They wandered from station to station, first bench pressing, then deadlifting, as their cameramen followed. We're just here to have fun, Piker said, then dropping into a mock PSA voice, and also reach out to the young men out there who are lost, who feel anchorless, rudderless, by lifting some heavy weights. One flat-screen TV showed Joe Rogan interviewing Elon Musk on mute with no captions. 2 shirtless guys, between reps, compared crypto wallets. During COVID, they let liquor stores and strip clubs open, but they shut us down, Martin told me. And then all the inflation, all the wars. It's not like I trust any politician, Trump or Kamala or anyone, to be a perfect person. It's just, if we never try anything new, how can we get a different result? Last fall, when Martin interviewed Trump, he brought up the deep state and asked, how would you actually make an effective change there? It wasn't a specific question, and Trump didn't have a specific answer. We're changing that whole thing around, he said. Apparently.
Honestly, that's good enough of an answer. Like, I know that, like, for people like me, it's mind-numbing, but when a left-winger is getting in there, if that's good enough, that's good enough. Like, why do I need you guys to know exactly how I'm going to dismantle the fucking, you know, CIA human int? Why do you guys need to know exactly how I'm going to burn every source and leave them tailing into the wind? You don't need to know that. Do you really need to know that if I get in there, every single CIA agent will be so fucking known by every foreign intelligence service that they'll never be able to operate again? No, you don't need to know that. I just say I'm going to turn that whole thing around. That's all you need to know.
This was good enough for Martin. The day after the 2024 election, Martin appeared on Piker's stream to explain his support for Trump. They started with small talk. Why do you have so many Zyn containers behind you? Martin said. I fucking slam those bad boys daily, Piker said. Look at us relating, bro, Martin said. When they got around to politics, Piker said, one side at least acknowledges that people are angry, the Republicans. The Democrats' proposed solutions were inadequate, he said, but Trump would only make things worse. Martin smiled and replied, you're going to have to say sorry when he does what he says he's going to do. They ended the gym session by daring each other to take turns sitting in Martin's cold plunge. Piker resisted at first. I didn't bring a towel, a bathing suit, nothing. But he went in anyway, in his gym shorts, and his commenters went wild. Hey, Hasan's chat. I hope you all are happy he took his shirt off, Nguyen said, facing Piker's camera. Then he checked his phone. The woman from the weight bench had already sent him a message. Wait, she did? Piker said with a grin. You're about to lose your virginity, I think.
Wow. Wow. Honestly, I really respect this article. I think he actually understood his subject. What an article, dude. Make sure you all give this give this a click, chat. Give this a click. You know, that's the only way these kind of stories are going to be written about your important left-wing content creators.